Hello and welcome to the Hangout. The Supreme Court has ordered the demolition of 35 floors on 90,000 square feet of a set of buildings in Mumbai's Worli area in what is known as the Campacola compound. Now this case of course has been dragging on for a long time with a lot of back and forth. The fundamental question we are asking today is, considering that the order has not been implemented, are Supreme Court rulings negotiable? We are obviously using the Campacola case as a test case of sorts to understand where exactly does the Supreme Court's writ run and where perhaps it does not, and what are the ways out, not just for the people living in the Campacola compound, but also maybe where other Supreme Court judgments are concerned. So we're looking at both the specific case as well as the larger legal issues that are involved here. Joining me to do all of that, Ayaz Memon at Cricketwala, my co-anchor, Vidya Srinivas, a resident of Mumbai's Campacola compound, also a journalist. Abha Singh is going to join us very shortly. Abhimanyu Chopra, a techie and Supreme Court lawyer. Also Alok Prasanna, techie, a Supreme Court lawyer. Both of them join us from Delhi. So Ayaz, do you want to start off with our opening
the premise,
opening shot?
Yeah. Look, it's a very vexing situation. Is the Supreme Court order negotiable or not? I think that in a sense, is it like obiter dicta? I mean, things get revised along the way, and therefore judgment can be perhaps negotiated or renegotiated is a big ask, because ultimately it is the Supreme Court you're talking about. But you know, I think the legal experts would be able to give us a better fix on it. But I think in life certain situations do crop up which look for at least a re-examination of, you know, whether the
so you're saying okay,
whether whether the ends are met and the means that are used to meet that end are justified or not.
Okay, Vidya, as a resident, you're obviously biased in favor of your continuation at Worli, but let's hear it from you.
Well, we are not negotiating the Supreme Court order. We are complying with it at this point. We have already permitted the BMC to come in and cut off our power, water, all our utilities. And what we are asking for, what was the Supreme Court order is somehow very strange. We had a Chief Minister's order which said that only 20,000 square foot was illegal. The Supreme Court order upholds that. At the same time, there was a municipal corporation order which said everything over 5 floors should go. The Supreme Court order says that too. So it's kind of, which was 90,000 square feet. So it's incongruous. What we're trying to do is save the 67,000 square feet, which is legal. And that is what we have been appealing to the court, to the Chief Minister, to everybody, to do.
When you say legal, you mean
yes.
what? Because
okay, I'll tell you what it was. There were there were supposed to be 9 buildings, which were all of 5 floors. The builders revised their plans and they built only 7 buildings and piled the FSI of those 2 extra buildings onto the towers.
Okay. So instead of 6 floors, you had 17 floors and 20
floors. Yeah. They have committed some violations. I'm not going to deny that, but it's only 10% that has been violated.
Okay.
So actually that 67 total, I think it was 186,000 square feet is perfectly within the permissible limits.
Sure.
So it's only like 20-odd thousand square feet, which is illegal. We are willing to demolish it. We are willing. We sent in plans. We proposed them.
Right. But the Supreme Court order as it stands today is asking for the demolition of all 35 floors and 91,000 square feet. There is no ambiguity on that.
No.
Right.
No.
Okay, now let's get a few legal points of view here, and let me begin with you, Alok. Alok, how does, first of all, explain to our viewers now and later, what does a Supreme Court judgment mean when administered or passed in this manner?
Is it Alok? Is it me?
Alok, this is for you.
Sure. See, in the Campacola compound case, without getting into the exact specifics of which building should stay and which building should not, ultimately the parties have themselves come to court. It is not as if the court on its own motion decided take this out, take that out. The Residents Association here itself came to court saying, please regularize us. Court said, no, sorry, we can't. And whatever the order that the court has passed in terms of which part has to be demolished, that is final. You can ask for a modification, but the court has, and nobody has, as far as I know and as far as I can make out, nobody's asked for this modification. Nobody's asked for this clarification. And even the last option of the curative petition has been foreclosed. So you may disagree, you may find it incongruous, you may find it difficult to enforce, it may be very hard. But at the end of the day, when the court says, do this, you have to do this. And it's not a matter of whether the court was right or wrong. That question is closed now. once the court has passed its judgment, that is right, and because the Supreme Court is final, it is right. So that's the end of the matter.
Got it. Abhimanyu, how do you see this? Abhimanyu, I mean, and I'm really trying to understand to what extent does the Supreme Court's order run in its entirety, and to what extent does someone have an ability to counter it in some way? Go to a president, ask for a larger bench, ask for some curative petitions, and so on.
See, the law is clear. Like Alok sir just said, I totally support that. When the Supreme Court passes the law, it is the law. In fact, if you would see that in the middle of September last year, when they had actually taken suo motu cognizance that since people weren't out, they extended the duration for 5 months so the people could come out. So they have actually tried to do whatever the best they could have. But taking that out of the picture, when a Supreme Court has already passed an order, it has to be demolished. It has to be demolished. Though I understand, I have sympathy towards the residents, but in fact, it's now be declared illegal. Now, you can, have your own way with it. You might not agree with it, but you have to follow it. It's the word of the law. And being the highest court, you have to follow it. I believe they have also filed a mercy petition, which is gone. Now, the only thing is, Supreme Court has done all its bits. Now, the execution will take place.
Alok, let me come back to you. Can you narrate from your own experience cases where a Supreme Court judgment has been passed and let's say the aggrieved party tries or wants to do something about the judgment, which is quite logical, and how it has played out in the cases that you've seen?
Yeah, so in my experience, now on the merit of the judgment, right, who's in the right and who's in the wrong, the court will almost never interfere. You have very exceptional situations where the court may realize it has made a horrible mistake and possibly change. But once the court has decided who's in the right and who's in the wrong, 99.9% it will not change its mind. However, there are some instances where implementation may be an issue. There may be a very genuine issue. I can give you one classic example where the court passes such orders almost day in, day out. Supposing you've been found that you don't have any right to this particular property. Court will not say, please throw them bag and baggage out tomorrow. Court may say, I'll give you 6 months. Supposing at the end of 6 months, you say, I'm really sorry, I have tried to comply, but there is still some more time I need to clear out. Court will say, okay, fine, here's 6 months more. So its final order insofar as how to implement it, the court may possibly change to that extent, but it will not change the rights and wrongs of a particular case. So to take a continuing example, for instance, the Sahara case, it's not as if the court has said, Sahara, you don't have to pay anything more. They only give them a little bit more time. They have prescribed the manner in which the payment should be made, what sort of properties to be given to the SEBI and so on. But at the end of the day, at most of the courts that we do is to say, I'll give you a little bit more time to implement it, which the court has already done in this particular case. They have given, I think, about 15 months to the residents of Campo Cola to implement this order. So that is as far as the court can, in fact.
Right. So, Vidya, let me come back on this. So, it's clear now. I mean, we all know this, but it's good to get a sort of couple of legal voices in. So, what you're doing currently seems to be contravening the law of the land by not agreeing to move out or resisting the BMC or the local municipal authorities from carrying out their jobs.
We are not. We have already complied with the Supreme Court order. We have permitted them to come in and to start the cutting off of all our utilities. You see, there is also, even though there is a Supreme Court order over us, the Chief Minister could have overridden it with an ordinance, which he refused to do. And so that is where we were trying all of last year to get.
Is that because the Supreme Court in some ways preempted it when it said that
it
the
was
government and its functionaries
shall
not put any hurdle or obstacle in the implementation of the notice?
Yes, but we did get 2 legal opinions. We got an opinion from Justice Sri Krishna, and it was endorsed by Mr. Fallinariman, which the Chief Minister had asked us to do, and we did that. But in spite of that, I don't know what went wrong and why the Chief Minister decided against issuing an ordinance to favor us. And I think they were afraid that it would include, there are 56,000 such buildings in Bombay. They were afraid it would include all of them. But we had given a deadline, a cut-off date of 1991, which is when all our buildings were complete.
Right.
And they wouldn't have wound up with 56,000 buildings to legalize. But anyway, the Chief Minister, for whatever reason of his own, decided against going above the order, which he could have very well, since we had gotten it.
Right. But we've crossed that bridge too.
Yes, we have, yeah.
Okay.
Now we have complied with the Supreme Court order. We have permitted them to come in and cut off our utilities.
Somewhere in between this, and I'm really talking about the last few days or maybe a couple of weeks, the sense was that all of you had decided to give it one more shot in, sort of protesting and resisting, and then something changed your mind in the last day or two. What was that?
Well, for starters,
because the Supreme Court order and all its ramification held even earlier, as they do today.
Yeah, there's just one thing I want to point out. Our case has not been dismissed. It's only been adjourned to the 30th of June.
Okay.
But at the same time, the judge has said that we have to vacate on the 31st of May, which was what...
which also was an extension to what was earlier.
The suo moto extension that we got. Okay. So we were just hoping to tide over till that 30th of May, and especially with the monsoons coming. I mean, I know today there's a very insensitive article about us living in luxury apartments. Yes, some of us have worked very hard and have added one apartment to another and expanded it. But there is also the fact that there are people still living in 500 square foot apartments. There's a wide spectrum of people living in this compound. And I'm afraid if you put a hammer on some of these buildings, the whole thing is going to collapse. Even below 5 will go, the way some of the buildings are such poor construction. So we have complied with all this, and we are just we were hoping to tide over the monsoon, because we do have some elderly people, and it's not possible. We're all living in Worli. Today, any average flat, there's nothing that's going to be less than 7-8 crores. Where are they going to get it from?
Right. So the thing is, what your argument is fair, but it's on merit, right? I think what we're at least discussing today is a Supreme Court judgment and whether or not it should be followed. And the argument would be that the Supreme Court has given you time, and when the first order came, it was obviously not monsoon. And the public perception seems to be that the residents who could have used this time to get things together have not.
Just 1 minute. We were also in court from December onwards, trying to negotiate with the BMC to do something to accept our proposal, which is to save the 67,000 square feet, since Justice Mukhopadhyay had asked them to do it on humanitarian grounds. The BMC dragged its feet on various issues, and finally on the 5th of May said, sorry, we are not in agreement in form or something. Basically, they were not willing to do it. It was very plain and simple. So we were left with 25 days to really vacate our place.
Okay. Let me come back to Alok Prasanna, you've been listening into this. What's the sense that you get? I mean, so you have a Supreme Court which is obviously passed an order. The residents saying that all the other parties involved in the execution of that order were obviously not moving with the same speed or as they desired, and obviously not being sympathetic enough to their cause.
See, at the end of the day, just merely because you go to court once again does not mean that you don't have to follow the earlier orders of the court. Being in court, unless the court has said, no, you don't, I have passed a stay order saying, no, you don't need to comply with the order. Even if you have filed a petition or a suit or whatever it is, you still have to comply with that order. So the clock keeps ticking. The clock does not stop just because you have gone to court. As far as the other other parties are concerned, they may drag their feet, they may take their time, but you can't live in the hope that they will also disobey the order as you expect them to. You have to anticipate the natural consequences of the order. And if you, it means, at least looking from the point of view of how the court will see it, the court will see that, look, we gave you time till 11th of November the first time, extended the time again till 31st of May, and if you're going to come once again at the last moment, you are essentially trying to play upon our sympathies, and you have not shown any inclination to obey the order. So the court may no longer show that even show that sympathy anymore if you have not shown any steps towards complying the order until the last minute. Let me remind you that this is something what has also happened in the Sahara case. In the Sahara case, there did not seem to be any inclination to obey the order. And if you read Justice Ayer's recent judgment, it's the frustration which the court says, you're taking us for granted. So if parties make all their legal arguments, but at the end of the day, if the court feels we are being sympathetic and we're being taken granted for, then they will close all options at the end.
Hold your thought there, Alok. I'm just going to come back in a sense. We also visited Kampakula compound and we spoke to some other residents, and let's give you a sense of how it looks like.
Controversies have surrounded this building ever since its construction. And for the past 9 years, the residents of Campacola have been in litigation with the BMC, trying to prevent the BMC from raising the building.
हमारी डिमांड है कि लाइट पानी गैस नहीं काटे, वो सब काट दिया तो हम घर में कैसे रह सकते हैं।
With the Supreme Court stating that 5 floors of the Campacola building that have been illegally constructed be demolished, and had ordered the residents to vacate the apartments by May 31st. But the residents, refusing to do so, have been protesting against the demolition of the building.
We want that CM should think about it, and in humanitarian ground he should allow us to stay in this our houses.
With the residents now only agreeing to allow the BMC to cut the water and electricity supply. The question is, are Supreme Court rulings negotiable? And why are the Campacola residents refusing to move out despite a Supreme Court ruling? Bureau Report, Boom News.
Right, there you are, some more visuals from the Campacola compound and conversations with some of the residents. Ayaz?
Well, just hearing what Alok and the other lawyer friend said and what you heard from Vidya, it seems that the executive showed kind of an inclination to help out and then has withdrawn that help. Am I right, Vidya?
And they withdrew it because the BMC refused to help out.
Because the BMC
refused to cooperate.
But fundamentally, it seems that the problem or the fault lines are really with the BMC. I mean, apart from the fact that people have gone and bought flats in what was illegally constructed, but allowing that much construction to take place and to exist for so long is fundamentally a problem of the BMC.
Right, no, and that perhaps is a fact here, but except that as we've all agreed, we've now crossed that bridge and we are now at a different stage where clearly there is a Supreme Court, which is the apex court, which is the highest lawmaking authority.
The only thing which remains is a humanitarian, that's the only argument that can remain. I mean, otherwise there is no legal argument as I understand it from the lawyer friends.
Right. So, Vidya, you're also, as I understand, have a separation within the ranks. Some of you, I think, are now convinced that the Supreme Court ruling is something that has to be followed, and there are some of you who don't.
It's bound to happen. We are 200 families. You can't get a husband and wife to agree. How do you expect 200 families plus their wives and all to agree?
Okay.
There's bound to be disagreement, and that's just part of any game.
Right. So those who believe, what has changed? I mean, why is it that you are now convinced that? I mean, I'm really trying to understand because nothing has really changed in the last 6 months.
No, nothing has changed in the last 6 months. Thing is, we've been standing at the gate. Every time this happens, we've been standing at the gate, trying to save our homes. And not everybody joins us, let me tell you, including those who didn't want to surrender. But anyway, we stood at the gates. It's hot. We had 2 people faint on Sunday, and we had a lot of MPs and MLAs who did support us. And that day, the MNS Bala Nangaonkar and Shaina NC from BJP came. And Shaina very clearly asked me, how long are you going to go on like this? When is this going to end? You have to come to some solution. So we said, okay, but get us some assurance that you're at least going to save our 67,000 square feet. Even if you don't, even if it is demolished, give us a chance to rebuild it. So it was on that assurance that she and Bala Nangaonkar took us to the Chief Minister, and he agreed to meet us immediately. And he said, okay, first you comply, and then I will get a legal opinion and see how I can work it out within the framework of the law. So we have put all our faith in him. In other words, he will appeal to the Solicitor General. He cannot go to the AG because Mr. Mukul Rohatgi was our lawyer. So he will appeal to Mr. Ranjit Kumar and ask him how they can resolve this issue on humanitarian grounds. At least that 67,000 square feet, because the order says you are upholding it, and at the same time it says this is the other order. It's kind of incongruous.
Okay.
So that is why he is looking at it, at least
at this point. Okay, let me come back to Alok and Abhimanyu. Abhimanyu, what's your sense of how this case can, I mean, is this option first of all workable? I mean, that the Chief Minister now steps in, says that he will find a solution within the law, because if that, I mean, all of this would mean in some ways that the Supreme Court order that was passed earlier will be tweaked or has to be tweaked, isn't it?
So, like I just said that they have tried other options and people have recanted. The crux of the matter is still that there is a legal order against you. Nobody is going to do anything until unless that is complied with. Like the Sahara matter was actually where a judgment was passed where they said you're wasting the time of the court. Over day in, day out, you're going to come up with the same issue. You first comply with the order. As soon as the order is complied, we will then look into the fact. The mere fact that they have still not vacated the building despite a suo motu order of the Supreme Court, which they have taken it for granted that way, is that they will not move out, so they will get another extension. An extension was done by the judges only on humanitarian grounds. The humanitarian ground can further be extended if you show your bona fides by actually moving out. Once the building is empty, once the BMC gets the access, once the issue is worked, then at least you can go before the court and say, see, I have complied with the order. Now help us. We understand there has been an irregularity. We are trying to comply with that. But in the meanwhile, do not let harm come on us. Then the Supreme Court might pass orders and say, now with a workable issue. The building is empty. You can do whatever you want with it, but before you demolish it, have the bona fides and do whatever you think you can.
Alok, how do you read this? I mean, I'm just trying to understand. So, therefore, it is possible that a Supreme Court can modify its order, assuming that there is a sense of acceptance and acceptance and execution of the order or receiving. I mean, the order by the people who are affected by it.
The modification can only come to the extent that it does not change the result of the case. Now, modification doesn't mean that it is now an extra appeal. Again, this is a very complex dispute which goes into a lot of background, and the merits of the claims have already been adjudicated. Now, if there is any incongruity, it's for parties to show how this is incongruous, and for the court to accept that yes, it's absolutely incongruous. They can possibly then modify to the extent of providing relief to some of the people who are aggrieved, but at the same time, you can't use this modification as a further ground to delay action on the earlier order. As I said before, and as Abhimanyu also correctly pointed out, you have to comply with the order first, show that you are coming here not to delay the proceedings further and to abuse the process of the court. See, at the end of the day, what every judge, irrespective of what level you are on, does not wants to believe that their orders are being seriously complied by the parties and that they're not being taken for a ride with endless applications and endless petitions and endless movement. Now the orders are final. What remedy can be passed by law? What remedy can also be given to them under law? Completely different issue. It will have to depend on the actual provisions in the relevant legislations applying to Bombay to the particular. And yes, the Chief Minister of the state can take measures so long as they don't try to set aside the Supreme Court judgment. They will still have to. They are still bound by whatever the Supreme Court decided on facts and law. But they may want to change the law to a certain extent. But they can't completely undo everything. That's the point.
Vidya, the sense I'm getting is that if the law was clear on this subject and the Supreme Court was clear on this subject, then you've only, in some sense, wasted a lot of time by not first showing compliance and then trying to work out a solution or a modification, as Alok was talking about.
Well, we went back to court hoping to get some, we wanted relief at least for the monsoons to get over, and even that they rejected. Yes, you know, when you say compliance, we have complied. You cannot live in an apartment today without any power or water or gas, let's face it. So none of us are going to stay there. Our things are still there. Some of our things we have moved out for security reasons, but our things are still there and we're still part of the society. So we have complied as far as we are concerned, and now we are going back and we are going to ask the Chief Minister what he can do, because there are, you know, there are genuine cases. Everybody insists we are illegal, but let's face it, there's 7 buildings, they didn't come up overnight. Each one took at least 2 to 3 years, and so the first man who died last Sunday moved into this complex. Some of the foundation for some of the buildings wasn't even laid. So how can you call his flat illegal? All the violations occurred way after his building was complete. Okay. So this is what we're trying to highlight, that of course I mean, there are a lot of other things. It's a very complex issue because it's not a straightforward case.
No, so it's not a straightforward case, but it's also
Yeah.
a Supreme Court which has passed an
I
order,
agree,
which
I agree.
in its wisdom, and
Yes.
in a country like India, which is a democracy, a Supreme Court order is the ultimate abiding.
I
decision,
agree.
isn't
It is something. We absolutely respect the order, and we were anxious to comply with it. But we were also hoping. But there are ways, like the Chief Minister's ordinance could have overridden that.
But that did not happen. I think
That
it
did
hasn't-
not
yeah,
happen.
Yeah.
It did not happen. There are ways.
And it must not have happened for good reason, right? I'm sure you can't have chief ministers or or whichever head of local government authority creating ordinances every time a Supreme Court passes a judgment which might seem unfavorable.
Well, what happened to the dance bar? How did that happen?
Okay, yeah.
And I mean, that's a classic case, and it's happened so recently. How have they reversed the dance bar order? The
Okay.
Supreme Court has ordered it.
Okay, so but even that had to be done at a certain time, but hasn't been done, isn't it?
Yeah, but they are contemplating. In our case, it was a clear cut out. No, your building goes. Period. There is
Okay.
no sympathy for you. You've got nothing back in return. And also, you see, what hurt us most was that the judge tied the hands of the bureaucracy and the politicians and said no one must interfere or impede in the implementation of this order. And the other
Maybe
thing,
it's precisely because you have,
a lot of
actually-
corruption in this state.
Yeah, and
yes.
you talked about the dance bar example.
Yeah.
Maybe it's precisely because of that you have orders like this.
Yeah, but ours came before that.
Okay.
And also the other thing is that he did not punish the BMC or the builders, only us.
Okay.
And this is where we felt it was an extremely harsh and unfair order. We were asked to go to the court with the builders. The builders are dead. We've got one died 2 weeks ago, the last one. And where are we supposed to get, you know how long it takes to get any case through? And we were dragged from City Civil Court to Supreme Court in 3 years. And I'm going to leave that to your imagination as to how we went that fast, because we didn't pull ourselves through.
Right. Alok, the ordinance road, I know it keeps coming up. Is that something that's feasible, and if so, at what stage?
Govindra, let me just quickly, since the example of the dance bar was taken, not to jump the gun, but in my view, that will not stand a moment's challenge in the Supreme Court. I will give you another example. Going back to the early part of 2000, Supreme Court had said all MPs should declare by affidavit. Parliament declare their assets by affidavit. Parliament passed a law saying no, you don't have to. Supreme Court struck down that law, saying that no, you can't defy our orders like this. In the sense that what we have made is a constitutional finding, and you can't turn around constitutional finding. Be that as it may, the ordinance power is very limited. It is also bound by constitutional provisions. You can't pass an ordinance to protect one person, one set of persons, or one set of litigants in one particular case. If you do that, it will not stand up. Again, as I said, a moment's challenge in the Supreme Court. And yes, as Ma'am herself pointed out, the issue is if you create an ordinance for one person, you have to create for 56,000 other people, and that has larger implications. So no, an ordinance for one set of people or one person is simply not possible. It will not stand scrutiny in the courts.
So this is where it stands today. Vidya, we're running out of time. So
Sure.
what are you going to do? What's your
Well, we have complied
Next
with the
step.
order. We have allowed them to cut our utilities, and there's no way you can stay in an apartment today without your utilities. And
so are you moving out as well, personally?
we are moving out, but our things are there because we would like to at least hold on to our stuff and see which way this whole thing goes. The Chief Minister has said he will approach the legal advisors and find out what
Right.
he can do. Also, we are asking, at least can we please rebuild our 67,000 square feet on this land? And if we have that assurance, we get our deemed conveyance, which again is our birthright but is being challenged by the BMC. If we get that, we know we are safe. At least we'll get something out of it. Right now we are zero. We've got nothing. We've lost all our savings.
Okay. So at this time you're saying you're not giving up, even though there's a Supreme Court order, but you've complied with it to the
yes.
extent that you've
Yeah.
vacated the homes,
Yeah.
and you're hoping that you're able to build something around in the same premises.
Yes,
Right?
because there is that provision, there is that FSI available, and we should be at least given that.
Okay. Vidya, I wish you all the best with your battle, though I think there seems to be general consensus that you've got an uphill one at that.
Absolutely.
Ayaz?
No, I think you put it very succinctly that it's an uphill battle. But yeah, I mean, look, I think at the end of the day, there is merit in the argument that if 67,500 square feet is permissible, then the compliance happens, and then if that's the legal position, if it is, then that should be allowed. But we'll have to wait and see how this story unfolds.
Right, and on that note, thank you very much, Vidya. Thank you, Ayaz, and thank you, Abhimanyu and Alok, for joining us from Delhi and giving us the legal opinion. The question that we were asking is, or can Apex Court rulings be negotiated, or are they negotiable? The answer seems to be no, and but that does not mean people who are affected by it will not try, and particularly when they've got so much to lose. We wish them all the best, even as we respect the highest court of the land. Thank you very much for joining us on the India Hangout. We're going to be back soon.